Pope Francis has officially stepped down, marking the end of an era for the Catholic Church. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, known for his compassionate reforms and progressive ideals, is taking his place. Tagle's rise to the papacy is not straightforward, as he faces a church divided by tradition and change. Pope Francis has placed high trust in Tagle and believes that his mission is complete. His papacy has been challenging, but his faith in the Church's ability to evolve to meet the needs of its followers in an ever-changing world has never wavered. The timing of this decision is intriguing, as it comes during the Jubilee of Hope, a global celebration launched on Christmas Eve 2024. This moment is meant to inspire renewal, reflection, and hope for a world navigating enormous challenges. The timing of this monumental choice comes during the Jubilee of Hope, a global celebration launched on Christmas Eve 2024. The event is meant to inspire renewal, reflection, and hope for a world navigating enormous challenges. The timing is remarkable because it comes during the Jubilee of Hope, a moment where millions are being invited to dream of a brighter future. However, there is still much work to be done. The transition of papal leadership is steeped in tradition, with intricate steps that must be followed. If rumors hold true, Pope Francis may be following in the footsteps of Pope Benedict XVI, opting for abdication over serving until death. This would mark only the second papal resignation in modern history. Centuries of precedent shifted in just one decade within Vatican City. Whispers of this potential change are growing louder, with a palpable sense of both anticipation and uncertainty in the air. This isn't just about a change in leadership, it's about the Church's future. How this transition will shape its stance on pressing issues, such as the role of women in the inclusion of LGBTQ Catholics, and the urgent need to address clerical abuse. Whoever steps into Tagle's shoes will have to carry forward his vision and define their own path in a rapidly changing world. Pope Francis, a global icon known for his emphasis on social justice, environmental stewardship, and interfaith dialogue, is set to leave the Catholic Church. As rumors of his potential departure grow, the ripple effects will be felt in political arenas, social movements, and spiritual communities worldwide. The Vatican is preparing for a historic announcement, with the College of Cardinals being the group of elite leaders who will gather in the Cine Chapel for a conclave once Pope Francis officially steps down. The influence of Pope Francis will linger in the conclave, as every decision he made during his tenure points to the kind of leader he hopes will carry his vision forward. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, born in the Philippines, stands out as a symbol of everything Pope Francis has stood for, including his deep compassion and theological brilliance. He has spent years advocating for the poor and marginalized, creating sustainable opportunities to lift families out of poverty while strengthening their faith. Cardinal Tagle's initiatives have given people the tools to change their lives while reminding them of the Church's deep commitment to their spiritual and material well-being. In sub-Saharan Africa, where many Catholics face unimaginable economic hardships, he offered solutions through partnerships with local communities to fund schools and vocational training programs. His focus on enculturation means that the Church listens to communities, adapts to them, and celebrates their unique cultures. In Myanmar, Cardinal Tagle championed reconciliation, bridging faiths by bringing Catholic and Buddhist leaders together and creating a platform for dialogue, fostering understanding and unity. His belief in the power of the Church as a catalyst for peace and healing became a beacon of light for communities struggling to move beyond their differences. Cardinal Tagle's influence extends beyond the Church, becoming a global force for compassion and action. His commitment to enculturation allows the Church to become part of the stories of different cultures, empowering local communities to express their faith authentically and meaningfully. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the president of QUITS Internationalis, has been a significant figure in the global Church. He has spearheaded the Share the Journey campaign, a global initiative that raises awareness about the plight of migrants and refugees. Tagle's empathy and commitment to social justice issues, such as climate change, poverty migration, and poverty, have led him to advocate for the Church to take bold and tangible action. He has encouraged the Vatican to partner with secular organizations and take real action on these issues. Tagle's connection to Pope Francis has been built on trust, collaboration, and a shared mission to bring Catholic teachings to the world. Pope Francis appointed Tagle as head of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, a position that puts him at the heart of the Church's mission work. Tagle oversees efforts to spread Catholic teachings across the globe, especially in regions where the Church is growing most rapidly. Tagle's rise to the papacy was not accidental, but a result of a clear alignment with the values Francis has championed throughout his papacy. Values like compassion, inclusion, and a commitment to addressing global challenges such as poverty, migration, and climate change have been central to Tagle's rise. Tagle's path to the papacy seemed inevitable, as his growing influence and Francis's trust in him positioned him as the leading contender. However, the journey ahead carries challenges that could redefine his legacy and test whether he is truly prepared to guide the Church through its most complex era. To succeed Tagle, he must demonstrate that he is more than an Asian Francis and carve out a unique identity in the eyes of the College of Cardinals. In conclusion, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle's leadership and compassion have earned him widespread admiration, but his path to the papacy remains uncertain. Tagle must demonstrate that he is more than just an Asian Francis and carve out a unique identity in the eyes of the Church. The upcoming election of Pope Francis to the papacy is a complex and multifaceted process. 3 critical factors could undermine his chances: competition from other candidates, his progressive reputation, and his reluctance to speak out more openly in China. First, Cardinal William Go, who brings Anglophone qualities that align with the Church's growing focus on regions outside of Europe, faces stiff competition from other candidates. Go is also seen as someone who can bridge gaps with conservative factions within the Church, equality that Tagle, viewed as firmly within the progressive camp, may struggle to replicate. Tagle's progressive reputation is both his greatest asset and a potential liability. He has consistently championed the importance of hospitality within the Church, challenging harsh rhetoric and advocating for inclusivity, particularly towards LGBTQ Catholics at the recent Lambeth Conference. However, this may alienate more traditional members of the hierarchy. Tagle's path to the papacy is further complicated by his striking parallels to Pope Francis's rhetoric and mounting criticism of his domestic and international record. These factors underscore his alignment with the current Pope's vision, but raise important questions about his leadership style and independence qualities. Critics of Tagle's domestic record as Archbishop of Manila accuse him of entangling the Church in partisan politics, particularly through his vocal criticism of former President Rodrigo Duterte. Critics argue that Tagle's involvement crossed the line, violating the constitutional separation of church and state. Tagle has faced scrutiny for allegedly failing to hold clerics accountable for misconduct during his tenure. This perceived leniency has left some questioning his capacity to enforce discipline within the Church. The most challenging test of Tagle's leadership lies beyond internal Church matters: his calculated stance on China on the global stage. His silence on this issue remains a point of contention as Pope Francis continues to pursue a controversial agreement with the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. In conclusion, the upcoming election of Pope Francis faces several challenges, including competition from other candidates, his progressive reputation, and his reluctance to address the controversial Vatican-China deal. Pope Antonio Tagle, who led from 2019 to 2022, has been criticized for his silence on sensitive geopolitical matters, particularly the Vatican-China agreement. His proximity to discussions and partial Chinese heritage, this restraint has raised concerns about whether Tagle would effectively address sensitive geopolitical matters. The trial of Cardinal Joseph Zen, a vocal critic of the Vatican-China agreement, was set to begin on September 19th, but was postponed. Pope Francis, who has adopted a conciliatory tone towards China, has sought a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping during his visit to Kazakhstan. However, this request was declined, and Francis has framed his approach as the path of dialogue while downplaying Zen's criticism. Tagle's lack of public criticism could be seen as a weakness by not distancing himself from the controversial agreement. However, his popularity, charisma, and extensive experience have positioned him as a leading contender for the papacy. Critics argue that Tagle struggles to bridge divides within the Church as effectively as some of his peers, such as Singaporean Cardinal William Go. The criticisms leveled against Tagle, particularly concerning his domestic record in the Philippines, are largely in the past and unlikely to weigh heavily on the College of Cardinals. However, his reluctance to speak openly about the Vatican-China deal presents both a challenge and an opportunity for Tagle. By addressing these areas, Tagle could demonstrate that he is not just an Asian Francis, but a leader with a distinctive vision and the capacity to unify a diverse church in a time of global challenges. The Catholic Church stands at a crossroads, with Pope Francis stepping down and Cardinal Luis Tagle stepping up. The future has never felt more uncertain or promising, and Tagle's ability to navigate the Church's internal divides and reconcile criticisms remains firmly in his hands.